30. The children looked at each other in confusion, not quite understanding the final message of the robot. Chesney turned to Midia.
Altering? What does that mean here? They were changing something about them somehow? Why?
Midia shook her head, taking on a thinking posture.
Beats me. Like, altering how? And why would they be altering Raigan lifeforms to Lennis's environment? I don't get it.
She gestured upwards.
Why would they want to do something like that? Mouth, do you know anything? Seen anything like this before?
He shook his head.
No, nothing like this place. Any place I've been to before seemed more like storage in comparison.
Midia turned to Nails.
Okay, Nails. You need to explain this. We don't understand what that robot meant. You've been here before, right?
When he responded, he did so haltingly, like he was having difficulty finding the word. Or you're deciding exactly how much to tell us, Chesney thought.
Yes. I have been here before. There were many goals of this facility. They were experimenting with ways to make it so the life forms native to Raiga might be adapted to be able to thrive here on Lennis.
Midia frowned.
Yes, we have ears, we heard that. How? Altering how? The Great Ones had technology that can alter beings on a genetic level. You're not making sense. Genetic level? What does that mean?
Nails seemed to be growing frustrated as it came out in the modulation of its voice.
This is a difficult topic to explain, for many reasons. Greatest among them is that you lack the scientific understanding for which these questions require to be answered. But if you give me a moment, I will explain as much as I can.
While Nails found a peaceful place to put the RX unit that had ceased functioning, he related his answer.
All living beings have something called a genetic code, a set of instructions stored in every small part of your body that dictate how any living being looks, behaves, grows. The immortals of Raiga possess technology to change that code. Doing so could prevent diseases or make someone taller or stronger. One of the purposes of this facility was to alter the life forms of Raiga to be able to survive here on Lennis.
Everyone stared at Nails in complete awe.
You're telling me that they could change life? They controlled life? That is mostly accurate, yes.
Mouth shook his head.
No wonder people treated them like gods. Okay, but why were they doing that?
Chesney pressed.
I mean here. What was the reason they wanted Raigan life forms here on Lennis? Was there something wrong with Lennis? Did they succeed or not? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I was a guardian unit. I didn't ask questions.
Chesney and Midia shared a look. She raised an eyebrow. He nodded. Neither of them were completely trusting of Nails' answers. Chesney's mind filled with all the myriad questions that still maddeningly had no answers. Why had the Raigans come to Lennis in the first place? Why had they wanted to raise up the people of Lennis and teach them? Why had only 3 of them come? How had this life-form research laboratory featured into their plans? What was the Tower of Gabnid for? Why was Cormu's sword stuck in Strabo's back? What had really happened when the surface was devastated? Why did they leave? When did they leave? And most importantly, what else don't we know? What more is there left to find? Midia's rage boiled over. Her face was turning red, fists clenched so tight, her knuckles cracked, and small arcs of lightning sparked over her whole body. She screamed through her teeth.
More and more damned questions. I'm so tired of this. Why did you come here? Why did you abandon us? What was it all even for?
Just then, from a door near the east corner, came the sounds of roaring and scrambling. Whatever was still in this facility had heard her. She turned to the noise and gathered power in her hands. All she could see were flashes of color, bright cherry red, deep green, acid yellow. A swarm of monstrous nightmare things, greasy feathers, bright sharp talons, and grasping hands. The room filled with light as she poured all of her rage into her attack, not caring that whatever she was attacking might hold clues to all the mysteries that lay before them. Screaming, hissing, light, and quiet. She stayed in position, breathing heavily from the toll, waiting for something in the smoldering heap to twitch or move. At last, she slumped.
Sorry. I just hate feeling lost like this. Well, save some for the rest of us.
Chesney said out loud and came up to her. He gave her a quick squeeze to the shoulder and said much more quietly to her,
I get it. We'll figure it out. Don't worry.
Mouth looked at the pile of charred corpses.
My, the tales of your skills were no exaggeration. In fact, I might say they didn't quite do you justice. Well, to be fair,
Chesney said,
we've certainly had a lot of practice since we were in Nasquat. Now, why don't we take a look around and see what we can find? There might be more automatons with answers or something.
They stayed mostly together and looked around this room and the next, taking care to carefully examine any devices that might still be functional. The next room was filled with more broken canisters, not to mention was absolutely filthy with monster nests. There was a wall display that seemed to be partially functional, but there seemed to be no way to gain access to it.
Excuse me, but is someone there?
A voice said from the next room. It had that strange hollowness that only an artificial voice could have. Nails was alert immediately.
This is a Guardian unit, Nails. Identify.
A wiry robotic body peered around the corner.
Oh, a Guardian unit. Strange to see one here after so long.
Then it saw the others.
Are you guarding these young great ones in this indigenous life form?
It turned to them and bowed.
I am RX-6. I dared not hope to see more great ones. Do you know where the masters have gone? Hi, RX-6.
Chesney began lamely. He looked over the automaton, which seemed to be in much better shape than the other had been in.
We were trying to talk to the other one, but he's broken down. Can you tell us about what was going on in this facility?
The machine bobbed.
Ah, yes. Unfortunately, RX-310 was damaged when one of the canisters ruptured a very long time ago. It has deteriorated ever since. I have a space in which I can hide when danger approaches. And yes, of course. Hold on a moment while I fetch the research.
The automaton walked over to the still active display and pressed several symbols until the display changed. The machine worked quick as lightning, pressing things everywhere in a blur that was impossible to follow.
Do you have a particular experiment you wish to know about? You should know the most recent experiment was never completed, and the specimens have escaped. Since then, the integrity of the facility has been compromised and proper cleanroom experimentation cannot be conducted until the facility is repaired.
A lot of that went over Chesney's head.
Well, how about? What was the last experiment for?
It pressed more buttons, and a series of pictures were displayed. On one side was a strange creature Chesney had never seen before, and on the right were 3 more pictures of creatures with different proportions that looked quite similar.
Airman 203. Goal. Food concerns in the colder Sasquatch regions. Adapting the mountain ballbird from Rega to adapt to the cold Sasquatch climate for the purposes of maintaining a livestock source.
So they were trying to make food? Medea stood beside him very contemplatively.
Was that what the other experiments were there to do? Create livestock? Some, yes.
It intoned. A few more button presses later, and more images appeared on screen. Creatures that looked remarkably like Gubo, only golden in color. In another, fish that looked like Bosting, only thinner and a different brown color.
The Langornius was one of the earliest adapted species, as well as the Bosland tangler fish.
A chill went down Chesney's spine.
Are you telling me that the Gubo and Bosting are not actually from Lennis? If you are referring to these creatures,
it said, gesturing to more pictures of those species that looked like the ones he was used to seeing.
Then no, they were native to Rega.
Medea was rubbing her forehead.
Wait, so were the people of Lennis starving? I don't get this. No, the native populations were not in danger of food scarcity. So why did the Great Ones put Regan life forms on Lennis? Food for the Regans. Native Lanusian flora and fauna were not entirely compatible with the Regan digestion. Several crucial nutrients were unable to be extracted. So, it was necessary to create hybrid creatures capable of ingesting Lanusian nutrients and then expressing compatible ones. How many kinds of animals did they bring over?
A few more key presses. Flashing by almost too fast to see were dozens and dozens of pictures of all too familiar creatures.
There were 187 successful species transplants.
Something felt very wrong about this.
Wait, you said most were for food. What were the others for? A combination of filling in vital niches in the natural food cycle from gaps introduced by these new livestock species, as well as replacing certain troublesome species with more docile counterparts.
A thought came to Midia, and it made her stomach turn.
And what happened to the species that used to fill those niches? They were made to become extinct. How? Great Gabnid used various methods. Usually the competition from new species was enough to drive the other species to extinction. For particularly dangerous and tenacious species, Great Cormu was sent to destroy all nests.
Cormu, slayer of monsters.
They eradicated almost 200 species from Lenis to feed the three of them. Incorrect. The alterations to the food chain were meant to sustain both the Lanusian and Regan populations.
That was going to be her next worry, but another sprang into its place.
Wait, did the Regans ever alter the people of Lenis?
It paused briefly.
In which way specifically do you mean? Their code things? Genetic code? Not in the same way as these experiments, no.
Mouth, this time, chimed in.
But it sounds like they did alter them in some way, right? Affirmative. The native Lanusian life forms were altered to give them access to the spirit network. Additionally, their cultures were slightly altered by the presence of the Great Ones, their knowledge, their science. So, it sounds like the Regans were intending to, live here on Lenis? Affirmative. Why? I am unable to answer that question. The information is classified. Okay then. Why didn't they end up going through with that plan? Unknown.
All of them, save Nails, groaned in frustration.
Okay.
Chesney said, still watching the images scroll ceaselessly on the screen.
This is a lot to take in. I don't even know what I know anymore.
All he had really wanted was to find a clue on what to do next, but now he seemed to be on the cusp of yet another mystery. He needed something to stop Dahlgren, not piece together what the Immortals had done.
Okay. Alright, maybe we're getting away from what I really need to know. What can you tell me about Dahlgren? There is no information stored here about Dahlgren.
It said, but before Chesney could react, it added,
However, some matters regarding Dahlgren were discussed while I was present. Great Gabnid would often speak to himself while working. Additionally, Great Cormu and Great Sophie would sometimes come here. There were arguments. Based on the information I have, it was likely Gabnid's intention was to use Dahlgren to control all life forms on Lenis, an intention Great Cormu and Great Sophie opposed.
After that, there was much freaking out by everyone involved, and more questions, but no matter what they asked, there was no more information to be had. Sighing, Mouth put up his hands for silence.
Alright, when I have trouble piecing together a problem, I talk through it from start to end. What do we know about the Great Ones? Right.
Midia said, taking a breath to calm herself down.
Okay. 10,000 years ago, the Great Ones landed on Lenis at the spot we now know as the Throne of the Immortals. According to the legends, they united all the people of Lenis, taught them their ways, taught them the spirits, and settled the wild places of the world. In return, the people of Lenis worshipped them, built temples to them, worked for them, and built up the Throne of the Immortals.
Mouth nodded and continued.
During that time, they spent time adapting their own native species to live on Lenis, and clearing away the ones that were already there. There were arguments about Dahlgren. Dahlgren may have been able to control Linus somehow.
Chesney finished.
And then, before they could complete their plans, suddenly all three of them disappeared. Days later, the surface was devastated. The legends around Lagan tell of a great dragon, Strabo, that flew all over Linus and laying waste, until Cormu defeated it, and it crashed just north of Lagan, leaving his sword stuck in the dragon's back. Could that be the same devastation Nails spoke of? And after that, nothing, no sign of the Great Ones. One way or another, Cormu's helmet and armor ended up in Sasquatch. 13 years ago, Medea washed ashore of Ratzurk, carrying Sophie's crown. Dahlgren was unsealed and activated by me. And now here we are. What does that tell us? It sounds like everything went to hell in a hurry,
Medea said.
If not, you'd think any of them would have been noticed. But no, they just disappeared. It also tells us that the purposes of the Great Ones for coming here was not entirely altruistic. But we've also learned that maybe they all didn't completely agree on everything. So, maybe there were more reasons than we can really say at this point. I keep thinking back to Strabo,
Chesney said.
He was cursing Gabnid. Why would he be cursing Gabnid if Cormu was the one to slay him? But then, there was also the ghosts of Charon, which were convinced Gabnid had been the ones to destroy them. Could one of them be mistaken? Ugh, I feel like we're so close to really understanding here, but we're missing something.
He turned to the robot that was still dutifully standing by the screen, waiting for more questions.
I don't suppose you know anything else that can help us?
It waited for several heartbeats, then bobbed up and down.
One moment.
It disappeared into the room they had not yet entered, and returned with something in its hand.
Please take this, young masters. Your safety is very important.
It was a bottle. One the children had never seen before. Mouth shook his head in awe at the universe.
You lucky little pack rats.
The two of them practically smushed together as they fought to look more closely at the label. There, underneath the Rigan text, was the Lanusian translation. Megacetaphone. Hospital use only. Not for resale. For use only in the most extreme emergencies and where loss of life is imminent to. Complete revival, repairs deep tissue and organ damage. To be used only when prescribed by the emergency doctor. That's some intimidating warnings, Chesney thought. He noticed there was no information on how often it could be taken. That could be good or bad. He still remembered the awful frightened look Medea had given him on the day they first met, when he had told her that he'd taken an entire bottle of minoxidil in less than 24 hours. How their bodies had ached from long-term use and overdosing on the way to the minstrel's tent in Sasquatch.
Medea, I think you should take this.
She looked at him as he put the bottle in her hand.
Why? I have the shield. Shouldn't you take it? It sounds a little scary. I'm worried I might take too many risks and take too much of it. You seem to know about this stuff. I think you give me a bit too much credit. But sure, I'll take it. Now let's go see what else this place has got.
Mouth shook the bottle on his belt.
Well, I'm feeling a little less special. Do you know how hard it was to find this one? And then an automaton just hands you one.
Medea stretched and cracked her back.
Oh, come on, I bet you just found it on the ground. Hardly. I had to fight off 6 berserk automatons.
The next room turned out to be more of the same, save that there was an elevator there. Riding it up, the doors opened to a much different feeling in the air. Rather than the cold, sterile look of the underground, or the almost greenhouse of the Lifeform research facility, this upper floor seemed just old, vacant, and abandoned. It was not lit by emergency lights, but instead by reflected sunlight from somewhere unseen. They could hear the gentle rustling of leaves and bird calls, though it sounded far off. Immediately, Chesney lit a fire in his palm and walked away from the elevator. The ground was sandy, covered in soil.
I think we're in Sasquatch.
The color of the dirt was a dead giveaway. There were no doors within the walls here, just many corners. Chesney had no idea what purpose this part of the facility must have had, but it couldn't have been too greatly important. Following the light, they found the exit. The doors that were there had fallen off their hinges, now mostly covered with vegetation. Stepping outside, they saw they were in an isolated valley, surrounded by mountains. The facility was almost completely overgrown, but even now there were still some fences standing that marked the edges of what once was. Midia grabbed her map.
You're right. This is Nasquat. We're a ways south of Hagudo.
Mouth looked all about at the mountains.
Well, they certainly knew how to hide. Never in a million years would I have thought to cross this mountain range in search of ruins. I thought it was all impassable terrain until you hit the ocean. Please, do not stray too far from the entrance.
Nails asked.
I have no data on what experimental creatures could still be in this area. Yeah.
Chesney agreed, turning back to the shadowed halls.
I'm not really wanting to find out either. Those ones still living in the facility were gross enough. Let's take a look around, and then head back.
It was clear there were no nests in the building, so they explored more broadly and in pairs. Chesney and Mouth, Midia and Nails. After a few minutes, in the drawer of a mostly rotted cabinet, the boys found a strange device. It was rectangular, about the size to fit on a person's lap, and had a hinge at one side that allowed it to unfold. On the top was a dark screen, and the bottom a hand-shaped recess. Chesney immediately shivered in recollection. He wasn't much of a fan. Still, there was a blinking light along the edge. It still seemed to be functional.
Any idea what this is?
Mouth looked at it.
I might, but we might as well ask Nails.
When they went to go find them, they saw Midia and Nails looking at a dirty broken wall. On hearing them approach, Midia said,
This wall shouldn't be here. What do you mean?
He asked.
While we were looking around, I noticed there was a part of the building missing. There should be something past here, but there's no way in it. Really? How do you notice this stuff? Oh, just gifted in every way possible, I guess.
She teased.
Now help us look. So humble too.
He joked, then joined their search. It wasn't long until he found a seam where there shouldn't be one, and with Mouth's help, pried it off the wall to reveal a door that had been covered. Inside there it was just as dark and dusty. It looked like it had long been forgotten, with piles of dust, where all kinds of things may have been piled and rotted. Among them, though, was another pink chest, partially buried. Tag and all. Midia gasped.
Another one? But why here?
She quickly ran over and heaved it from where it had been lodged in the pile of trash. Trying to blow the dust off it filled the room with the stuff, but she stopped herself from coughing. Pressing the light, the container opened, revealing a pair of boots seal.
Aha! This is the last piece we were missing. I'm guessing she didn't accept his gifts.
Chesney said finally, while Midia changed her boots to these new ones.
But then, why did I have the crown? Why it, and not the rest of it?
Midia asked exasperatedly. She stood and twirled.
Well, how do I look?
The boots were a dazzling silver color, looking almost like metal, but plant. There was something springy to them, and they caressed her legs without needing to be buckled or tied, and the overall theme seemed to be like subtle wings at her ankles. Chesney was better prepared this time.
It looks amazing on you.
She grinned, and didn't seem to know what to do with her hands as she rocked back and forth on her heels.
Thanks,
she said at last, then twirled.
Oh, right. With the boots, we can get in the earth door. Come on, let's hurry.
She ran over to him and dragged him, giggling, to the elevator.
Hurry, hurry. I want to see.
He allowed himself to be dragged.
What, you don't want to try the water door with your dress? No, I have a feeling about this. Trust me, okay?
Well, it was nice to see her giddy about anything, so he wasn't going to argue. A high-speed trip later, they were back in the underground, and standing in front of the earth door on the southwest.
I'll bet you my last gold this place takes us somewhere in Sasquatch,
Midia said with a keen-eyed grin. Chesney didn't doubt her, but he was curious about her reasoning.
Why do you say that? Think about it.
She pulled out the map, and gestured to the throne of the immortals.
This is where we are. The southeast door went here.
She pointed to Zagos's temple.
And the northwest door went here.
She pointed to the Nasquat laboratory they'd just been in the southwest of Nasquat.
I'm guessing this door here will take us somewhere around here.
She gestured to the northwestern tip of Sasquatch.
And the water door will. I think it goes to Dahlgren. Either that, or some other facility. But it all lines up, right? It rhymes too perfectly for it not to, right?
Looking at the map, it was all too obvious she was very probably correct.
Midia, seriously, how do you always pick this stuff up so fast? I always feel like I'm 2 steps behind what's going on all the time. Hey, don't sell yourself short like that. You're not dumb or anything. You've got a lot on your mind and a lot of pressure. It makes me happy when I can do things like this and actually help you, you know?
Mouth smiled in a way that was very grandfatherly.
You two work really well together.
They had for a brief moment forgotten he was there and started apart reflexively. Mouth laughed.
No, really. I've seen mercs that have worked together for years that don't complement each other as well as you two do. You're both very lucky.
Neither of them knew exactly what to say to that, so Midia laughed self-consciously and kicked the door in just the right spot to make it open, and they went inside. Once again, an identical room to the others, with a new transport vehicle waiting for them. On the ride over, Chesney looked pensive, and Midia asked him what was wrong.
Oh, you know, just dreading finding out what other dark secrets the Regents have in store for us. Forced labor camps, weapons, brainwashing.
At this, Nails spoke, his low rumbling voice filled with surprising emotion.
Preposterous! If you had known the Great Ones, you would never ask such a question. You all may have doubts about their intentions, but I do not. Everything they did was to the benefit of all races. There is no plan that Sophie, at the very least, would have accepted that would have allowed otherwise. Then why am I cleaning up their messes, thousands of years later?
Chesney snapped. Nails was not deterred.
Based on what you have told me, this entire situation was not because of things the Great Ones have done. It is what the people of today have decided to do with them, ignorant or no.
Chesney took a deep, calming breath. As much as he hated to admit it, Nails had a point.
Whatever. It's easy for you to say, Nails. You did know them. All I see is ghosts.
Midia caught the double meaning, intentional or not, and put her hand on his. He took it. They rode in silence the rest of the way, watching wonder after wonder rush by in the window outside. The shuttle dropped them off. The air here was cooler, much to everyone's appreciation. That feeling of presence was missing as well. Chesney turned to Nails.
I forgot to ask. Have you been this way before? Negative. Other Guardian units were present here. There is no need for me to go.
Chesney grimaced.
Great. Let's hope they're friendly.
He decided maybe he might be better off with the psycho beam, and switched weapons and put his shield back on.
Would this work on a Guardian unit? Affirmative.
Up the stairs they found something that reminded them a lot of the sea-locked facility south of Roki, though in much better repair. They came out at the top level of a large cavernous room, well lit, spotless. Where they emerged was a walkway suspended over a huge pit, with deeper yet smaller depressions the farther away they were, like a cake with tears cut out of it. Another walkway proceeded north, to what looked like an elevator, and a set of stairs nearby led down. First and foremost, though, was the horde of automatons and mechanical beings that saw them instantly when they emerged. The automatons did not greet them. They charged. From everywhere, the air, the walkway, and climbing up the stairs they came running or hovering. Needle drones, malfunctioning wire-armed admin automatons. Flying shock drones.
Nails, mouth in front!
Chesney yelled, making a ready stance. Midia was right beside him, concentrating on a spell. He took aim, fired at the closest wire arm, taking a big chunk out of its metal body. It stuttered, then swung at a needle drone, which was knocked away. Midia gestured with her hands, and from between the seams of panels, huge hands made of earth erupted forth and crushed and slammed down onto everything. At the same time, more missiles erupted from Nail's back and exploded into the front line. A formation of needle drones strafed them from the side. Mouth had up his shield and followed them, doing his best to block the assault from hitting the children, though some did get through and punctured their less armored spots. Just then, a flying shock drone came in behind Nails and struck hard with its flashing probe. A terrific shock went through Nails, and the huge robot stopped moving, seemingly stuck in place.
"Arr, back off,"
Chesney yelled, and a powerful windstorm slammed every flying enemy into the far wall. While distracted, a wire arm came to him from behind and clamped its pincers around his neck. His throat was closed so tightly he couldn't even call for help.
"No, you don't,"
Medea yelled. She hesitated for a moment on which weapon to use, chose the sword, and slashed out straight from the scabbard. The sword passed through the automaton like it was barely there, and she lopped off its head easily. To her horror, her wild swing continued and slashed a deep gouge in the back of Chesney's neck.
"Oh no!"
She screamed.
"Are you okay?"
He gasped in a huge breath of air and waved her off.
"Fine,"
he croaked, then pointed to Mouth. Mouth was pinned under two more wire arms and also dodging another stun drone.
"Break!"
she yelled, and the stun drone shattered in midair, raining pieces down into the pit below.
"Thanks, Missy,"
he yelled, then finally knocked the two assailants away.
"Alright, I think I've had enough fun."
He pulled at the device that looked amazingly like a book from his belt and tossed it in the air.
"Now trek."
At his command, the device opened and floated where it was, and the lighting of the scene changed drastically. A dark ball of energy formed, and in the next moment, everything was shadows. A terrible wind grew, and suddenly all the nearby enemies and broken robots started to be dragged into it. Anything that got close was turned to dust and drawn in. When the din grew too intense and the energy felt like it might pull them in too, he called,
"Dorte!"
and it stopped and fell to the floor. One more swarm of badly damaged needle drones swarmed up from below, but as they appeared, Nails stirred again.
"Be silent, brothers,"
he called, and then a huge gout of flames erupted from his arm and sent them all screeching and sparking to the pit below. Heartbeats passed as they all stood, panting, waiting for the next wave, but it never came. The room had gone quiet. Nails turned to Mouth.
"Where did you find that device? How did you find its activation and deactivation commands?"
The old man shrugged.
"I happen to know a bit of Reigen here and there. Found the thing spelunking in an undersea cave, actually. There was a manual and everything, but I didn't understand most of it." "The Book of 10,000 Things Found Out at Sea? How? Why is that weird? Isn't there stuff scattered everywhere?"
Medea asked.
I didn't know it had left Riga. I've never seen it outside of my database. I don't know what to make of this." "Well,"
Chesney said finally.
"It's really cool, in any event."
His voice still sounded hoarse.
"Yeah,"
Medea joined in.
"Like whoosh. I've never seen anything like it. Just, careful where you point it, I guess."
She then turned to Chesney, looking to heal his throat. Nails's arm stopped her.
"Hold, friend Medea. Chesney, press the button under the sleeve of your left wrist."
Confusedly, he peeled the fabric back, revealing a subtle button. He pressed it, and suddenly his whole body was filled with a familiar healing warmth. He took in a deep breath.
"Wait, is this like the crown?" "Negative. It can only affect you. But if used in time, it should heal any wounds. Let us proceed."
Medea threw up her hands.
"You're just going to drop that bomb on us and tell us to move on. Why didn't you say this earlier?"
Nails paused and turned back around.
"Apologies. I forget that you two do not know of the artifact. I forgot to mention it."
Then turned back around and proceeded toward the stairs. Chesney looked at his new armor with fresh set of eyes, while following Nail down the stairs.
"Whoa, now I have one too. Do you know what this means, Medea?" "That's still not fair. You got a cool new set of armor, and I got a dress." Or that now we're basically unstoppable.
He winced a little.
Well, yeah, that's exactly my point. What limits do we even have now? Unless something can kill us both in a single hit, we can get right back up and fight completely fresh.
She gave him a look.
You're talking like this is a bad thing, somehow. Again. Okay, yes, I get it. It's good that we have this power because, frankly, we really need it. But we're fighting for the planet. What if we weren't, though? Like, imagine if you'd been raised by, like, Zagos or something. To be his perfect little soldier. Who could stop you? You could. Someone, somehow. I don't know. Why are you asking me that? It's just, 3 Reagans took over a whole planet, and I'm starting to really understand how they were able to do that. And they were being nice about it. And it makes me scared that maybe one day, they, or someone else with all their magic and technology, could come down here and be not nice. What would Linus do then? You realize you've just made Zagos' argument, right?
That stopped him in his tracks for a moment. Had he really? Medea continued.
And honestly, I agree, to a certain extent. Chesney, Linus has been shown power. For good or bad, we saw the possible. Whatever course Linus would have taken if left alone. That's gone. It can never come back. The Great Ones changed the world, literally. And they left their toys lying around. Very, very dangerous toys. But toys we now need, if we want to stand a chance of protecting ourselves. I get all that, I really do. But what's to stop another Zagos from popping up? Or Hells, one of us, becoming the next Zagos? Are you really worried we could?
He shrugged.
It's all this second advent stuff, all these new secrets we're learning. In the end, I don't know what will happen.
Her eyes looked away, and she took a few breaths. Her fingers tapped on the hilt of her sword as she seemed to think. Finally, she turned back to him.
You're right. Who knows what the future will reveal to us? Heck, maybe Zagos was right all along, that we needed to unite and stand up as equals to the Regans. But I also know that he's a horrible person, the last person I'd ever choose to have the kind of power he wants to wield. I also know that he's not invincible. Lokiarn wasn't invincible. We're not invincible either. Our adventures thus far should be proof enough of that. Good people will always rise up and fight tyranny. That's just the way it will always happen. And so...
She distracted him by taking off his helmet, and then put him in a headlock, and started rubbing her knuckles into his scalp.
Quit overthinking things. This is really easy, see, bad guy? That bad guy. End of story. Got it. Ow, okay.
He whined, trying to twist out of her grip. Mouth laughed at their antics.
See, bad guy, zap, bad guy. Words to live by, truly.
She plopped the helmet back on his head, then said,
Don't worry, if you forget, I'll do it again.
Chesney grumpily adjusted his helmet, then whispered under his breath,
Maybe she was raised by Zagos. I heard that.
Mouth put a hand right between the two before Medea could round on Chesney.
Hold on a minute, friends. I think Nails found something.
All seriousness once again, they turned to find that Nails had descended into the large recess and was conversing with another automaton. They hurried down to see what was going on.
Young friends here, this is SV-19,
Nails said, gesturing to the smaller automaton beside him, before turning back to the automaton.
Please, tell them what you just told me.
SV-19 clacked its metal grabbers together in a gesture that seemed almost like someone nervously wringing their hands.
Oh my, are these truly Regans?
It looked them over.
Please tell me. Have you seen Great Sophie? Have you seen Great Cormu? Or Great Gabnid? They have been gone so long. So long. I have been so lonely since they left. I'm sorry, but no. We don't really know. What did Nails mean? What were you talking about before?
Chesney asked.
Oh, that. I was telling him about the last time I saw them.
Medea stood beside Chesney and smiled.
Can you please tell us about it?
It bobbed up and down.
Yes. Great Gabnid was gathering the last of the parts he had been manufacturing here when Great Sophie came rushing in now. Perhaps it is better if I just show you. I have an audio recording of the encounter. Will you listen?
Their jaws dropped. An actual recording of the Great Ones. This could change everything.
Please.
It bobbed again silently, and then there was a click, and a strange static noise filled the air, before abruptly changing. There was a new sound now. Machinery or some kind of work going on in the background.
All this.
It was a woman's voice. Sophie's voice. Just those few small words sent a bolt of lightning down Midia's spine. Now, finally, was a piece of Sophie that she could experience, something real.
Gabnid, please stop this. What you're doing, it's insane. My beloved Sophie, I'm not going insane.
A male voice spoke. It was deep and measured and sounded a little tired, like this was an argument he was tired of having.
Did you forget our mission? Part of that was spreading peace across Lennis, and that's what I'm doing. How can we safely move our people to Lennis if we are not absolutely sure they will be safe?
Sophie's voice came back, filled with a deep emotional sorrow.
Safety? Whose safety? Were you thinking about the safety of our people when you...
She sobbed, but then came back with a determined anger in her voice.
These people, they're alive. They have thoughts, and feelings, and hopes, and dreams. They matter too.
There was a slap, and Sophie cried out.
Listen to me, Sophie. Do not interfere. Do you want to end up like Cormu? Do you want to sleep forever with our people, waiting to waste away? Why shouldn't we do everything we need to do here? We are gods to these people.
There was muffled crying, and for a few long moments all that could be heard was the toiling of machines. A few sounds, something standing maybe.
We never wanted to be gods, Gabnid. These people, this planet, it doesn't belong to us. Let's just go home.
Her voice was filled with so much regret, the echoes of 100 unsaid things.
Everything changed when we came here. I want things back to the way they were. Why can't we go back to that? Why can't we leave all this and just go home again?
Another long pause. When Gabnid spoke again, his voice was far gentler, but there was also something terribly wounded in it.
You know we can't go back.
Footsteps, and then his voice sounded a little closer, a little kinder.
Oh, Sophie, what have I done? I'm losing myself.
A long, long, weary sigh.
But I can't stop. But, please, trust me on this. I'm not trying to destroy the world. I'm trying to save it, unite it, make it a place for them and us. Safe and warm and clean and happy. You'll see. And here.
There were some sounds like he was rummaging through something.
Here. Take this. If you truly think I've gone insane, use this.
Her breath caught in her throat.
Is this what I think it is? Yes. You know how to use it, right? With the...
And then, suddenly, the sound shifted to a loud static, crackling, buzzing. Then another click and silence.
Sorry,
the automaton said.
The recording has become degraded. That's all I have.
For long moments, everyone stared off into space, dumbfounded, trying to process what they had just heard. But mostly, they both felt haunted by the voices of a long-dead past. Over their journey, the image of the immortals in their minds had slowly transformed from distant, abstract beings to real but historical figures. And then now, hearing their voices, it was like standing in the room with them. Close. Intimate. Impossible to forget they were people. Real people. People who talked together, worked together, ate and joked together. Friends. And the echoes of something more. Maybe lovers? Or maybe something even more complicated. It felt almost disgusting, being a third-party observer to such a personal moment. There had been 2 battles fought that day. A battle for the planet of Lennis, and a battle for them, whatever feelings or memories they shared. Which side had won? When Chesney looked to Medea, he found her face screwed up in a display of emotion. Not quite sadness or grief, or even loss, but some indescribable feeling in between them that didn't need to be named. Her hand shot up and she wiped at her eye. Then the other, and then her voice broke as she took a quick breath.
I'm so stupid. I didn't even know them. Why am I crying?
He found that his eyes were wet too. He saw, felt people in pain, and his heart just reached out. He walked to her and held her gently. Then, too, her voice cracked again, and she held him back.
I just have this really deep wish that they went back home, you know? That's all I keep thinking. I hope they went home. I hope they went home. But I don't think they did. And my heart just keeps breaking.
After that, she couldn't speak, and just cried, and sniffed into his shoulder. They stayed like that and spent their grief together in silence. They mourned a friendship dead for thousands of years between people they'd never known, hoping they had found peace, knowing deep down that they hadn't. End of chapter.